Okay, so today we're diving into something that I think we all struggle with from time to time, and that's self-doubt.
Yeah.
And this is something that can really hold us back in life,
Yeah.
whether it's in our careers or our relationships or even just our personal goals.
Right.
And I think that a lot of times we don't even realize how much self-doubt is affecting us.
Yeah.
You know,
True.
it's kind of this like underlying current that can really sabotage our efforts.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things that's so interesting about self-doubt is that it can manifest in so many different
Oh,
ways.
absolutely.
For some people, it might be this really loud inner critic that's constantly telling them that they're not good enough.
Right.
And for others, it might be more subtle, like a feeling of hesitation or a fear of failure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But regardless of how it shows up, self-doubt can be really debilitating.
Yeah, for sure. And, one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is how self-doubt can be so insidious
Mm.
because it often disguises itself as something else.
Oh, interesting.
Like, maybe we tell ourselves that we're just being realistic or that we're not taking unnecessary risks.
Right,
But
right.
deep down, I think we know when it's really self-doubt that's holding us back.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important to really be honest with ourselves about those thoughts and feelings
Absolutely.
and to try to understand where they're coming from.
Right, because if we can identify the root of our self-doubt,
Mm.
then we can start to challenge it.
Exactly.
And that's what we're going to be talking about today on this deep dive.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into it.
Me too. So we're going to be exploring some different strategies for overcoming self-doubt, and we're going to be looking at it from a few different angles.
Uh-huh.
We're going to talk about the psychological factors involved
Yeah.
and also some practical tips and techniques that you can start using right away.
Love it.
So stick around.
Awesome.
And hopefully by the end of this, you'll feel empowered to tackle your own self-doubt head on.
Yeah, that's the goal.
All right, so one of the first things I want to touch on is this idea of identifying your self-doubt triggers.
Yeah, this is so important.
Because once you know what sets off those negative thoughts and feelings,
Yeah.
then you can start to develop strategies for dealing with them.
Right.
So, for example, let's say that you always get really nervous before giving presentations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you know that that's a trigger for you,
Yeah.
then you can start to prepare for it in advance.
Exactly. Like you can practice your presentation over and over again
Really
until you
hard.
feel more confident.
Exactly.
You can also try to visualize yourself giving the presentation successfully.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Or you can even try to reframe the situation in your mind. Like instead of thinking of it as a high pressure performance, you can think of it as an opportunity to share your knowledge and ideas with others.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I think that's something that I often struggle with,
Uh-huh.
is that I tend to focus on the negative.
Yeah.
Like I'll think about all the things that could go wrong
Yeah.
instead of all the things that could go right.
Exactly. And that's a really common pattern, but it's something that we can work on changing.
Yeah. So how do we do that?
Well, I think one of the most effective ways to shift our thinking is to start paying attention to our self-talk.
Oh, okay. So like the things that we're saying to ourselves in our heads.
Yeah, exactly. And often we're not even aware of the negative things that we're telling ourselves.
Mhm.
But once we start to pay attention,
Yeah.
we can start to challenge those thoughts.
Okay. So like if I catch myself thinking, I'm going to mess this up,
Yeah.
what should I do?
Well, the first step is to just acknowledge the thought.
Okay.
Like, okay, I'm having this thought that I'm going to mess this up.
Mm-hmm.
But then you want to ask yourself, is this thought really true?
Right.
Do I have any evidence to support this thought?
Yeah.
And often when we really examine our negative thoughts, we realize that they're not based on any real evidence. It's just our own fear and insecurity talking.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to remember that our thoughts are not facts.
Absolutely.
They're just thoughts.
Exactly.
And we have the power to choose which thoughts we want to believe.
I love that. And that brings us to another really important strategy for overcoming self-doubt.
Okay. What's that?
And that's practicing self-compassion.
Self-compassion.
Yeah, because when we're struggling with self-doubt, it's easy to be really hard on ourselves.
Oh, for sure.
We might criticize ourselves for our mistakes,
Yeah.
or we might compare ourselves to others and come up short.
No.
But self-compassion is all about treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a friend.
Okay, so how do we actually do that?
Well, it starts with noticing when we're being self-critical
Mm-hmm.
and then challenging those negative thoughts.
Okay, so like if I'm thinking, I am so stupid, I can't believe I did that,
Yeah.
then what?
Then you would stop and say to yourself something like, hey, It's okay, everyone makes mistakes. I'm not going to beat myself up about this. And it might also be helpful to think about what you would say to a friend if they were in the same situation.
Right.
Would you be so hard on them?
Probably not.
Probably not, right?
Yeah.
So why are we so hard on ourselves?
Good point.
And it's important to remember that self-compassion is not about letting ourselves off the hook.
Mm.
It's not about making excuses for our mistakes.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we're human
Yeah.
and that everyone makes mistakes.
Okay, and so how does self-compassion actually help us to overcome self-doubt?
Well, when we're kind to ourselves, we're less likely to get bogged down in negative thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
And we're more likely to be able to bounce back from setbacks.
Right, because we're not beating ourselves up.
Exactly. And that gives us the strength and the resilience to keep going even when things are tough.
I like that.
Yeah. And another really important strategy for overcoming self-doubt is to focus on our strengths.
Our strengths.
Yeah, because when we're feeling insecure, it's easy to dwell on our weaknesses.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's so important to remind ourselves of all the things that we're good at
Right.
and to celebrate our accomplishments.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, one way is to make a list of all of our strengths and accomplishments.
Oh.
And you can include anything on this list, big or small.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe you're really good at cooking, or you're a great listener, or you got a promotion at work, whatever it is, write it down.
Okay.
And then keep this list somewhere where you can see it regularly,
Oh, I see.
like on your refrigerator or on your bathroom mirror,
Mhm.
so that you can remind yourself of all the amazing things that you are and that you've done.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I think it's also helpful to talk to people who love and support us,
Oh, absolutely.
because they can remind us of our strengths when we're struggling to see them ourselves.
Right. They can offer us a different perspective.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to remember that our strengths don't have to be perfect.
Oh, totally.
We don't have to be the best at everything. It's okay to have areas where we're still learning and growing.
Exactly. And in fact, those areas can actually be our greatest strengths.
Oh, how so?
Well, because they show that we're willing to challenge ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and to step outside of our comfort zones.
Right.
And that's where real growth happens.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that ties into another really important point, which is the importance of taking action.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's easy to get stuck in our heads
Mm-hmm.
and overthink things.
Yeah, analysis paralysis.
Exactly.
Right.
But sometimes the best way to overcome self-doubt is to just do it.
Just take that leap.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's especially true when it comes to things that we're afraid of, because the more we avoid something, the scarier it becomes. But if we can face our fears head on,
Yeah.
we often find that they're not as bad as we thought they were.
Yeah. And I think that that can be really empowering
Totally.
because it shows us that we're capable of more than we thought we were. And it helps us to build confidence in ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that's really what it all comes down to.
What's that?
Building confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we believe in ourselves, we're less likely to let self-doubt hold us back.
Absolutely.
And we're more likely to achieve our goals.
Right.
So if you're struggling with self-doubt, I encourage you to start by identifying your triggers.
Mm-hmm.
Practice self-compassion.
Yeah.
Focus on your strengths.
Right.
And take action.
Great advice. And before we wrap up, I'd love to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay.
What's one small step that someone could take today to start challenging their self-doubt?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say think about something that you've been putting off because of fear or self-doubt.
Okay.
And then make a plan to take one small action towards that goal today.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be anything big.
Right.
It could be as simple as sending an email or making a phone call.
Yeah.
But just take that first step and see what happens.
I love that. And I think that's a great place to leave it.
Yes.
So thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you for having me.
And remember, you are capable of amazing things.
Yes, you are.
So don't let self-doubt hold you back.
Go for it.
All right. Thanks again for listening.
Bye.
Bye.